I did not run an ultramarathon until I did. I didn't launch a business of my own until I did. No one ever succeeds until they do. And the key to all of that success that you and I have ever achieved or ever will achieve is based on one simple decision. The decision to step into the unknown right where you are today. This is the 5 a.m. Miracle, episode number 427. All or nothing is a terrible idea. Start now, wherever you are. Good morning, I am Jeff Sanders, and this is the podcast dedicated to dominating your day before breakfast. Yes, I am a highly caffeinated type A guy. I'm also a rule follower, box checker, and definitely a perfectionist. I'm the A+ student, at least in theory, and a guy who wants the best at all costs. In the real world, though, all of this means that I am normally a highly stressed out workaholic who does not like to fail or look bad when I produce anything for the public. I want an all-star result on the first try. And frankly, that's just not realistic. Recently on the podcast, I announced that I'm launching into a new career path of sorts into the world of voiceover, which has a lot in common with podcasting, but it is kind of on its own. And the crazy part about me starting now is that I waited. I waited a really long time to begin because I knew more than a decade ago that I wanted to pursue voice acting, and I just never did. No one succeeds who never begins. So I am beginning now, at age 37, not 27 or 17. I'm starting now, and that's what I want for you too. The episode this week is really not about this concept of all or nothing. It's really more about the concept of fear. At least that's the subtext, right? Most of the time, we hold ourselves back not because we don't have what we need to begin, but because we're afraid to begin with where we are. We have this false assumption that we need more information, more tools, more money, more time, yada, yada, yada. We just don't have enough. Therefore, we procrastinate, we delay, we put off, and we don't get the thing we wanted because we never started. We never gave ourselves the chance to even take step number one. If you take anything away from the episode this week, all I want you to do is start. Take the first step. It could be goofy, awkward, embarrassing. It could feel non-productive. It could feel tiny and silly. Fine. Let all of that be true. When I first wanted to pursue voiceover, I was probably in my late teens, way back in high school. And that all started because I was in theater in high school, and I got this very common comment about my voice, which was that I had a voice for radio. And that's a career path I could pursue because people liked the quality of my voice, the tone of my voice, which is great. I'm happy to have been born with that skill, I guess, or that quality of my life. But the reality is that I had a choice. I could leverage that ability or ignore it. And for a long time, I just simply said, that's not for me. I don't want that to be true about me. I have other things I want to go do. And for a long time, that's what I did. I pursued lots of things that were totally unrelated to the background that I have in theater, the background that I have in performance or technology or leveraging, in this case, this very specific quality of mine, which is just the way that I speak. Now, I eventually did launch a podcast, which you're hearing now, but for a long time, I knew that there was this whole other world that I could pursue, and I didn't pursue it for a long time, mostly because I just did not think I was ready. I didn't think I qualified. Now, to be honest, we are just now getting started. This is a new thing, so I can't yet give some big speech about how successful I am in that arena. Maybe I will a few years from now, and you'll hear all about that. Or maybe not. I don't know. But the point is, it doesn't really matter what the outcome is going to be. What matters is that there is something that I want or have wanted, or in theory, I want, but I want to scratch that itch, right? I want to see what's possible. I want to know what could happen if I pursued it. And I want to be the kind of person who is able to step into that more often. The kind of person who's able to say, there is this life dream of mine, or just an idea that I want to go and see what's possible. And if I don't take that leap now, when? When will these things happen? And I think for most of us, we are really good at delaying the inevitable or delaying things indefinitely. And that just doesn't work long term. Now, maybe you are in a very difficult season right now, and starting that brand new career path or project or personal mission just isn't possible today. But I'm going to argue the opposite. It's not only possible today, and literally today, in this very 24-hour period you're in now, it's not only possible today, it is necessary today to begin. So now let's dig into the actual core content of what we're talking about. This idea of all or nothing being a terrible idea, and that I would prefer for myself and for you to start now wherever you are. Now, I want to kick this off with a counterexample, and which is one I've just discussed a lot on this show, which is having a baby. Now, having a baby is not the same thing as all or nothing being a bad idea, because a baby is by definition all or nothing. One day you don't have a baby, and the next day you do. Like, that really is the extreme of one side to the other. It's true or it's false. It's either happening or it's not. And once it does happen, you're all in. Like, you've been thrown into the deep end of the pool, and now it's time to learn to swim. That's been my life and my wife Tessa's life for the last couple of months with our second child. We had that same kind of thrown into the pool experience 3.5 years ago with our first daughter. But when it comes to children, in this example, there really is a difference between one day you don't, the next day you do, and all or nothing applies. And sometimes in life, you are thrown into those examples, right? Where all of a sudden things are different today than they were yesterday. And if you don't act now, whatever is happening is going to blow up in your face. Most of life, though, does not apply to these scenarios. Most of life is not that black and white, or that night and day, or that yesterday was one way and today is totally different. Most of life is much more subtle. It's much more about the little decisions, the tiny habits, those details that ultimately add up to much bigger change down the road. Now, when we think about success, a lot of times people will say, well, I achieved this really big thing, but it wasn't an overnight story, right? It wasn't like yesterday I was poor and today I'm rich. Yesterday I had nothing and today I have everything. Right? That's not real life. If that ever does happen, it is the exception, it is not the rule. So the question then becomes, how do you actually achieve success or achieve a goal or accomplish anything most of the time? And the answer is always little itty bitty decisions, tiny choices that you make each and every day. For most of life, not being all or nothing, we need to pursue these things and strive for these things with these tiny steps, knowing what the tiny steps are. And this is actually a point that my wife gave to me when I was talking to her about this concept a couple of days ago. I was asking for her advice because I frequently for the podcast will bounce ideas off of Tessa trying to figure out, am I thinking through this idea clearly? And she gave me a really good point that I wanted to bring up, which is that for most of us, when we consider the smallest action we could take to pursue a new goal, the smallest thing we're imagining is not actually the smallest unit. So let's use exercise as a good example here. My wife, because she is in maternity leave right now, has not been going to the gym. She's not been working out. And I was talking to her about, health habits and her trying, bouncing back from having a baby and wanting to be healthier long term. And one of the things that she said was, when I think about exercise, the very first thing that comes to mind is going to the gym for an hour, going to a yoga class, going out for a long run. In other words, the smallest unit of exercise that's in her mind is actually much more significant than it needs to be, because you don't have to do a full hour of exercise to consider that a workout. You don't have to attend an entire class or run a 5K, right? That's not a requirement. You could do a much smaller unit to begin today. You could literally do one push-up. You could walk for 1 minute. You can take a tiny step, and that is progress. And not only is that progress, that could be the catalyst that it takes for you to actually begin now. And that may sound silly, and it may sound worthless. It may sound like, Jeff, a single push-up doesn't do anything. Walking for 1 minute is not effective. But here's the thing, it totally is. Because all of this is a mind game. It's not physical, it's not practical. It is mental. And our minds are not practical. They're emotional, they are crazy sometimes, but the one thing they're not is rational, right? We have to do things that work for us, which means leveraging the way we already operate. And for most of us, we could build momentum over time by proving to ourselves that doing nothing is not the best choice. We can do something no matter how small that something happens to be. Fear prevents action. So believing you have to do it all stops you, in most cases, from doing a single thing. And I would rather today do one push-up than zero. I would rather run for 1 minute than 0 minutes. That's the difference maker. You start where you are, and you don't let that fear leave you in the zero category. You allow yourself to have something. And then tomorrow could be a little more something. And the next day, a little more, little more, little more. And those little mores add up quite a bit. Now, there are some key categories here, projects and goals that you need to begin now, regardless of where you are. Core projects that most of us could pursue, big goals that would, for most of us, these are things we think about all the time. The first of which, of course, is your health, right? We can put down a donut and take one bite of a salad. We can say, I'm not going to sleep in tomorrow morning because I'm going to get up and do 5 minutes of yoga. Right? We have the opportunity every single day to make itty-bitty decisions that can improve our health. And instead of saying, I don't have time to go to the gym today, therefore I will do nothing, that's no longer in the equation. The question is, what can I do? How can I get started right now in this moment? There was a study done a long time ago. I forget the exact resource of this study, but it was looking at hotels and the staff that clean the rooms, right? The maid staff, usually they're cleaning hotel rooms, and they gave one subset of these maids this directive that says, when you're doing your work, when you're changing out the sheets on the hotel beds and you're putting away all the towels and you're doing this labor, this actual work, that you're serving your body, that you're actually doing a workout, that your job is physically demanding. And they studied another group where they did not tell them this at all. Just said, do your job like normal. And when they compared the two groups over time, they found that the group that was told the work that you do is physically demanding and it's hard, they actually lost weight, improved their strength, and were healthier overall. It's an incredible thing. The counter-example of believing you don't have the ability now with your current job, with your current lifestyle, versus believing that what you're already doing could be effective. And if you added a little bit more to it, it could be even better. It's a powerful thing. What you believe about your life dictates your results. What you believe about how you operate each and every day changes the outcome. So change the little habits. Do things a little differently, and you will get improvement. You will see results. Another common category here about goals that we can begin now is money, especially saving money or investing for the future. It's very common in the world of money to believe, well, if I don't have $1 million today to invest, that I'm just going to not invest a single dollar. But investing a single dollar is how money ultimately compounds over time. You may think, well, Jeff, $1 doesn't add up to a lot of money, but compound interest proves otherwise. Money does add up. There is the potential, of course, long-term here, to improve these numbers. But you have to start with $1 before you get to 10, before 100, before a million. Everything begins with the tiniest possible unit. And if you can't start now, today, with a single dollar, then what will it take in the future? What will it take for you to begin? Once again, we can't delay the inevitable. We can't delay the future forever, because if we do, that future does not come. Start now. One push-up, one bite of salad, a single dollar invested. That's where it begins. And now for the action step this week. Start where you are. Right now, today. If you've been waiting to begin something significant until you're further along or more ready, just start now. Waiting will only delay the same process you'll have to go through eventually. So start now. Start now. Start now. Seriously, like right now. JeffSanders.com/427 is the place to go for the episode notes. And of course, subscribe to this podcast. JeffSanders.com/subscribe will show you a bunch of apps you can choose from, or use the app you're using right now. That's all I've got for you here on the 5 a.m. Miracle Podcast this week. Until next time, you have the power to change your life, and the fun begins bright and early.